Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Orca Dev's call 242 on a special day. Today is the 11th birthday of Ethereum. So happy birthday. I know squarely in the second decade. Yeah, looking forward to year 12. And with that, let's go into the agenda. The first part of the call will be about Glamsterdam and then about Hekota, the second half. So on Glamsterdam, first, just briefly, DevNet 7 has been running for a while. Last I heard is that everything was stable, but wanted to briefly check on this. Barnabas, could you give a quick summary?
Yeah, the DevNet has been running quite stable. There was a few bugs that we found along the way. One of the major ones is right now Teku. Teku still seem to be mainly self-building blocks and not using any public bids. And also, when you use Teku as a builder, then the bids are not coming in. So it would be nice if Teku guys could take a look. There was a few other bugs from Bezu where they pushed a commit that broke the state root calculation, and I think Geth had a builder path bug as well, but that was fixed as well. And I think the Bezu bug has been fixed as well too.
Okay, sounds good. Any other comments? Anything either regarding those bugs or any other topic regarding DevNet 7?
Um, no, not right now. We have 100% participation. We have a few payloads missing here and there. Those will be investigated further. And we are still actively trying to break the network.
Sounds good. Yeah, then I think we can immediately move on to discussion of Glamsterdam DevNet 8. And there is a proposal to potentially turn that into a short-lived testnet. But first, I wanted to briefly talk about the scope and the status of the network there, the preparations. There's a scope doc by Panda Ops. Yep, linked in the chat. There's two topics to touch on would be one, status of repricings, and then two, Disk V5. So let's start with repricings. Maria on the call and could give a quick summary of where we are at there.
So on repricings, we are currently, so there's two things that are happening, let's say. So the first one was we are doing the repricing analysis on Amsterdam DevNet 7. And that includes both the changes to the EAPs, but also includes two new things on the benchmarking side. So first is we expanded some of the pricing scenarios for ETH transfers and access to accounts. And the second one was we started to use a new tool to generate the state that the benchmarks run on. And while we were testing this new way of generating the state, we realized that the snapshot we were using before, which was the Johemnet snapshot, had the potential to be a bit optimistic in regards to some DB designs, and the state actor results would be much more accurate. And so this is one process. So we do have early results from these, but clients are still merging some of their optimizations still in DevNet 7, and we are also trying to understand like the numbers we are seeing right now that got a bit worse. Is it due to the optimizations not being merged yet, or is it really the expansion of the tests that created those? So this means that we cannot very confidently say that the numbers are final yet until we figure these things. And the second step is so the repricing analysis is like a subset of all the benchmarks we have, and we are starting to also run the full benchmark suite for Glamsar DevNet 7, and we do expect to have results on that next week. So these are the two things that need to be finished before we can more confidently say that the numbers are final. So we need to figure out all the things with the new results on the repricings, and also gather the results on the full benchmarking suite, which we expect next week.
Sounds good. And are you actively like basically are we tracking towards that being ready in time for DevNet 8 launch?
I'm not sure. It really depends on the results we see next week. So it's hard to say.
Okay, sounds good. So something to keep monitoring. Anything else on repricings from anyone?
Should we wait with DevNet 8 till this is done?
It seems like that might be desirable if we really want DevNet 8 to be the last DevNet. Obviously, depends a little bit on the timing. If it takes a long time to wait, and chances that we would need to change anything based on the results are very small, maybe it's worth taking the risk, but seems like we should at least try to wait.
How many days do we need?
I'd say maybe if we can wait until next week, and then we reassess. Like if we are sure that the results are unlikely to change, then we can more confidently go with DevNet 8, and if not, we can discuss again and see if it makes sense to do another DevNet after 8.
So we want to propose that DevNet 8 would be the last and a public testnet, basically. So it would make sense to use the final numbers, especially because it's gonna be like public facing. So if we change yet again some repricing numbers, then it can be quite confusing.
Right, then I guess we need to wait, right? Like I mean, at this point, I cannot confidently say that the numbers won't change. So yeah.
Right, then let's just try to get this. Let's just try to get the numbers ASAP, and then once we have the numbers, then we launch the network.
Right. As I explained on that, the two things is we need to have all EL clients now do a final push on assessing the optimizations and making sure that the numbers are as we need them to be, and if there's any optimizations that were missed. And then start seeing the numbers on the full benchmark suite, which we expect to do next.
Could we maybe then get an update from EL devs as to if they're still waiting on pushing some optimizations, or is everyone done?
Maybe we should call each EL team out.
I can start on Vasos side. So there is one thing that I raised last time, which is the configuration that that state actor generates for the database doesn't seem to be the same as the one that we use on mainnet on Vasos side. So I shared the mainnet configuration. I think Johan and Carlos are looking into it. So this is one point. So we need to get that like that configuration up to date to run the test again and see if we need to optimize more. But from our side, we pushed everything on Glam DevNet 7, and yeah, and we had few regressions because actually of the last merge we did, but we fixed all the regressions.
Any other clients? So we could go through. Guess, are there any in-flight optimizations still? Anyone from Geth on the call that could answer that? Okay, maybe no one from Geth with that context, so I would assume no. Anyone from Nethermind?
Might be just cool to have an option to compare with different clients. If someone will reach better performance by some unique optimization, we will try to apply similar stuff. So some initial numbers would help to determine if we can improve further. But no, nothing is planned in this direction.
Okay, makes sense. Iterex says they have all optimizations. Then from Aragon, anything in flight still?
So recently, yeah, please go on.
Yeah, go on, Andrew.
Okay, I just wanted to say that recently we've been focusing more on the correctness, and hopefully we'll be soon done with that, and we can switch back to optimizations.
Sounds good. And from Reth, anything?
I'm sorry, but maybe Milan,
Oh.
you want to add something?
No, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to mention that I think the branch that currently, the Amsterdam DevNet branch that we're currently has been currently running these benchmarks is quite old. I'm in the process of refreshing it. And I did notice that there are some unexpected performance regressions, which we fixed previously. So I need to see why. But I hope that it should be easy because it's things that we've already stumbled upon. But yeah, I think because we jumped from, I think there's like two things happening at the same time. First, we jumped from BAU DevNet 7 spec, which is months ago, to Amsterdam DevNet 7 spec changes. There might be some regressions, but also we just got given a new benchmarking tool to run these benchmarks. So that will take a bit of time to review. So there's like two big things that need a bit of time to go through. Is what I wanted to say.
Yep, sounds good. That's good context. Then just quickly checking in on Reth. I think that was the only client we didn't hear from yet. Anything in flight?
Nothing. Everything is a merged domain. So yeah, we don't have anything pending.
Okay. Did I miss any client? I think that was all. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like in general, one, then for clients, quick prompt to maybe prioritize this over the next few days, just because it seems like it might be the bottleneck for us launching the DevNet. And that would be good to do ASAP. So if you have some time, please look into this. And then the other thing, Maria, quick check. It sounds like maybe we are just getting to a place where we're confident enough that even if there are some regressions or some last minute worse performances than we expected to see, that it sounds like we could just at that point then just trust that clients will, like, whatever the affected client is, will just have the ability to look into it and fix that afterwards, so that we could maybe just leave the numbers as is, even if we find regressions.
To be honest, I'm not sure. I remember, for instance, for Geth, they saying that they don't really have any more optimizations that they can think of to do. And after the results with the new state actor tool and the new test cases, it could be that actually the numbers like require some changes. So I don't think we can really say that yet. Yeah, I'm sorry. I would like it to be different and to be able to give you better numbers. I think if we want to I don't know. I think another option is like we just say that the numbers are what they are if you really want to speed this up, and then what will happen is that we'll maybe get a lower gas limit. But I don't know if
Makes sense.
that's also like something we want to do instead of just waiting a couple more weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can make that assessment next week, but I would say maybe for clients, then the prompt at least, if ideally early next week, I mean, ideally on ACDT, but at least some point next week, if you could have at least a feeling of, are there any unexpected big regressions, big blockers? So basically that if we at least have like a 90% confidence level by next week of like, okay, this looks good, these numbers will likely hold. I think that's probably good enough for us. So if you all could spend the time to basically like get to a reasonable confidence level there, that would be good. And yeah, maybe ideally be in the loop with Maria to see if there's anything specific to pay attention to. Maria just posted something in chat as well. Okay. Sounds good. Then yeah, let's just make sure that repricings doesn't block the kind of getting to the final DevNet too much. That's it. Anything else on repricings? Okay, then the other item for DevNet 8 would be Discovery v5. There were some elements to that. One just in general, kind of like status regarding Disk V5 support, but then I think there were also some considerations around potentially doing the DevNet Disk V5 only and or otherwise just thinking about how you would want to move mainnet to Disk V5 only, like on what timeline and everything, and how to then do that with the DevNets and testnets ramping up to mainnet. I think Barnabas and Shaba are the two people that have been looking into this. Can either of you give an update of the open questions there?
Yeah, so the agreement was that everyone turns on Disk V5 in the releases, keeping also Disk V4 on, and then at one point we turn off Disk V4, and that's what we want to test now. I was testing with other clients in a Kutosis testnet, and it seemed that less has issues, but it turned out good to have confirmation that they have also things working on the main bench. It was just the DevNet 7 branch which had things not merged, cherry picked for this, and it wasn't DevNet 7 Gore, so it's fine. So how it seems is that we are ready to have DevNet 5, Disk V5 only testing. Two clients were missing the flag to turn off Disk V4, but that should be easy. And some clients, it seems, need to rebase branch, but I guess everyone will anyway reconstruct the branches to some extent, or cherry pick or rebase, whichever is their choice. So it seems good to go for DevNet 8.
Sounds good. Maybe just to quickly confirm the REST status, Dragan, I think you said that that's being finalized on the REST side?
Yeah, I think some changes are emerged, but some are currently in PR form. So for Disk 5, yeah, we should have everything soon.
Sounds good. And I mean, also just to check, Chaba, I assume it's not a critical blocker for the DevNet, like to have all the clients fully ready, right? Because we could always like have an updated client release before we test the switching to V5 only. Is that right?
So yeah, I think I didn't fully get the question. What was not critical and what is. The important part is that yeah, it would be bad if we set up the the network, and then some clients just don't connect at all. So that's what we want to avoid here. And then from there, I think it will be working. And in the background, there are Hive tests, which every client should look into passing all of them, so that the implementation. The thing is, the implementations are mostly shared with the CRs, and the CRs are running on this since quite a long time. So I'm not expecting huge problems. It's not that we have to test new implementations of the protocol. So I guess everything will be fine if things are bootstrapping correctly. There was one issue in the bootstrap, but that was specific to kurtosis, in which there were different ways of passing the bootstrap node addresses, and not all the tools were ready to pass it as an ENR. They were still passing it as an E-node. This before like, and then that wasn't digested by, and it's not mandated to be digested by some of the clients. Some clients handled it, some not. We will make sure it's passed as an ENR.
I have a fix for that.
Yeah, I think we both have a fix for that.
It would also be good if EL teams now returned the ENR fields, maybe in addition of the eNode fields in the admin node info RPC endpoint, or just the ENR if disk v5 is the only thing enabled.
Yeah, do you know which clients are returning it, which not? I wasn't looking into that.
So currently only the eNode field is returned by every single client.
Okay.
Not ENRs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. And then is that everything regarding DevNet 8 for disk v5? Then if so, just a quick question just to flag that at some point we should also then discuss how we will kind of like sunset disk v4 support on mainnet. I assume we don't have to discuss this today, right? But at some point between now and mainnet fork, we should have a strategy there in place. Okay. Then those were the two main topics regarding the readiness for DevNet 8. And then the last question there regarding DevNet 8 is there is this proposal by PandaOps to basically turn it into a more public-facing testnet, short-lived testnet, with a name that I'll have a hard time Plata Berget testnet. Maybe Barnabas, do you want to briefly summarize what the idea behind that is? What the difference would be in practice? Any decisions we need to make regarding this today?
Yeah, so the main reason we want to launch this is to be able to get everybody onboarded, and we noticed that if we just call it a DevNet dash number, most people will still not really pay attention to it, or they just dismiss it. So that's why we decided that maybe we could have a named testnet that would run approximately till the mainnet is hitting Amsterdam. So I would expect it to be a couple of months, and then after that, if everything was smoothly there, then we would just sunset it.
Sounds good. And then a question in chat would be whether there would be a separate DevNet wiki round, I guess DevNet 7 in this case, that we would want to, or the NFT DevNets.
Yeah, we still plan to do like large scale DevNets in the meantime, but we just want to make sure that the public facing testnets are available as early on as possible with the latest spec. So this would be, yeah, this would assume that we are no longer doing any further repricing. So it would be a prerequisite to finish all the repricing before we launch this testnet.
Sounds good. So then, for now, maybe, I mean, is there a decision to be made here? I think it seems like a good idea, kind of like pretty uncontroversial. Anyone that has concerns around going this route? Okay, so then basically, like for anyone listening, we can already kind of say if you're app developer, anyone else, an infra provider, anyone who wants to start testing this testnet will be kind of your place to do that. Exact timing of launch TBD. Barnabas, yeah.
Yeah, so the exact launch is TBD. Hopefully, we can make a decision on that on next week's ACDT. And then after the launch, we are expecting to wait approximately a week, maybe 10 days, to do the fork. And this should give enough time for all the builders to get ready for the fork as well and try to be online on at the fork.
Sounds good. So if you are a builder or anyone else affected by the fork itself, you should pay attention from the start. And otherwise, if you want to just test the steady state after, you have a little bit more time to wait. Sounds good. And I'm sure we'll give more information, more advisory for people, kind of like in other forms, as well in the coming days, once we lock in a decision around timing. Okay. Sounds good. I think that's all then for DevNet 8. Well, for the testnet. And then everything also for Glamsterdam. Do we have any other Glamsterdam related topics?
One thing we could mention is I posted in the chat that we can get the Hive chain to date. I think Chase is looking into that. I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to that so that we can get RPC compatibility across the board for Glamsterdam endpoints. I think there's still some work to be done to get the Hive chain up to date with Glamsterdam. But once that's done, we will have some tests running to see that all clients are passing those compatibility tests in the RPC.
Sounds good. Your audio was a bit bad, but I think everyone could understand this, hopefully. Yeah, I'm sorry, this was my mistake. I miscategorized it at the very end of the call, but you're right, this should be a Glamsterdam item. Chase, you're also on the call. Anything to add from your side?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, right now, Hive chains to date has mostly been handled by Felix, and so I was looking into how we could update Hive chain for Glamsterdam, and I'm using the latest Glamsterdam 7 images, and I'm trying to do that, but there's some like complex EIP interactions around the bow list. So if someone could take a look at that, that would be great. I'm trying to like vibe engineer my way through it, hitting some blockers, and I just like some extra eyes to help me get past that.
Sounds good. Anyone in particular that you or yeah, or just anyone who feels like they have context.
I mean, I'll take any help I can get.
Sounds good. Okay, awesome. So please have a look. And then that's probably all for Amsterdam. Yeah, if there's nothing more, then we can move on to the Hekota section. Before we have a bunch of PFI EAPs, and on that point, I wanted to briefly just talk about the proposal deadline specifics again. So the proposal deadline, as we communicated in the past, is next week. Now, next week is obviously ACDC. So on the ACDC side, any EAP proposed before the ACDC call is in time. On the ACDE side, what I was thinking is basically have the same deadline. So basically, like the beginning of the ACDC call is the cutoff time. And if you want to propose an EIP by then, you can either do it by leaving a comment on the agenda for next ACDE. So basically, like the agenda that will be up on GitHub today, you can leave a comment if that's there by next week. It's in time, or you can open a PR against the Meta EIP. Either way, basically, if it's clear that you were on time by next Thursday by ACDC time, then your EL EIP is also still on time. Any questions there, or otherwise we can go into the PFI DIPs for this call? Okay, then first up, we had 3 EIPs from Ethan.
Yes. The first one is 8115. Today, at the end of every transaction, we credit the fee recipient of the block with the priority fee. And the proposal is to collect all these priority fees and credit them at the end of the block instead of after every individual transaction. That has 2 benefits. One of them is that like parallel transaction execution is a tiny bit better because not every transaction has to write to the fee recipient. And also it is better for the UX because if you are a block producer and you are like a fee recipient, someone, and you open that up in MetaMask, you have like 300 entries with like microtransactions giving you tiny priority fees in there. If you chose these even. But like it consolidating them into a single entry would make that a little bit cleaner. The downside is that the priority fee would be only spendable in the next block because it would be credited at the end of the block. So that's the difference there. That's the 8115. And then the next one, 8116, that one is also a UX thing. Today, if you query a receipt of a transaction, it has this field, it's called cumulative gas used. It's like all the gas summed up to and including the current transaction. So if you query the 5th transaction in the block, you get the cumulative gas used of the first 5 transactions. So if you only care about the actual gas used, that means that you have to download 2 of these receipts and then do the difference there, which is inefficient and makes like trust minimized approaches a bit trickier. So the proposal there is to replace that cumulative gas used field with just like whatever gas that individual transaction used. That like it's still the same information, but like stored in a slightly easier to access way. And then the last one is 7807. That one was originally proposed as a headliner, which got rejected. But now it's like scoped down to a non-headliner. And this is about changing the way how the block hash is computed to be based on SSC. So it's just a block hash now. It's not transactions, not receipts anymore, so that it stays simple. It also has a way smaller dependency list now than it used to have. The main benefit here is that, again, for the users who are accessing it, they can prove individual fields of the block without downloading the full header. And also for the CL, it allows the CL to compute the block hash locally. Because today the CL has to send every single block to the EL to compute the block hash and verify that it's correct, even during sync, right? So this should improve the sync process for the CL. I think there's also some interactions with Jacek's top-up sync. But yeah, the idea here is just change the block hash to the same way how we hash it on the CL and align those two. Then let me check the comments real quick. There is some similar EIP problem is if you want to use priority fee. Yes. So yeah, the priority fee would be credited at the end of the block, and the downside is you can only spend it in the next block. It's mostly a thing for the builders to figure out, I guess. Individual TX gas used. Yes, it's in the API, but it's not in the on-chain data. So if you want to have a trust minimized way where you only want to, like you prove, the Merkle-Patricia try-proof, you do a Merkle proof that this individual receipt that you get is actually part of the block root. You will have to download both of them to have a trust minimized way to verify that the data is correct that you receive from the server. Yes, it's in the response, but it's not committed on chain. Like the server can just put whatever data is in there and you have no way to verify unless you download both. And then this should take into account, we now have state gas and execution gas. 7807. Yes, I mean, yeah, like we can, huh? But is what I'm not sure what the IP it is about.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, let me quickly explain. So you were saying we should change this cumulative gas in the receipts for ERP 8116. ERP 8037, we now have two levels of state gas what we are accounting for. So we have two different dimensions of gas what we are accounting for: the state gas and the execution gas. And this is this. Well, I like this idea, but we should specify like what exactly is being like, is it the gas what is being spent in total, like what the user or the transaction sender is paying for, or is it only the execution gas, or is it only the state gas? But this should be specified. That's my comment, but it's slightly detailed.
Yeah, I mean, the EIP can obviously be updated. The idea is to, like whatever you receive over the JSON RPC should also be on chain so that it's verifiable. Otherwise, you cannot prove the data with the Merkle proof. So if there are two gas used values, then of course you would put both of them, just change it to be just about the individual transaction instead of cumulative. And yeah, I mean, if there is more stuff that has to go in there, of course we can also put that as part of the same effort. Like the idea is just what's in the JSON RPC, put that on chain.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
And also for the 7807, for the block hash, I removed the logs bloom field from the block header as part of that. And over JSON RPC, you would just receive all ones, so you don't break the legacy client, but it would not be hashed into the block hash anymore, so that we can phase out the logs bloom. That's it from my side.
Perfect. Thank you, Ethan. Anyone else with questions they didn't already put in chat? Okay. Then up next, Derek, you wanted to propose ERP 7819. Not sure if you're on the call.
Yes, I'm on the call. Yeah, so I'm mostly here because I wasn't sure if the original author of the EIP, Hadrian from Open Zeppelin, was gonna be here. But I see that he's on the call right now. So like, Hadrian, like, do you want to do the proposal? Or do you want me to just I guess say out what I prepared?
You can go ahead. That shows that people besides me have an interest in this proposal.
Sure. Yeah, so to me, like the EIP 7819 is mostly important from the standpoint of we are trying to get account abstraction really widely adopted on Ethereum, right? So especially if we manage to ship native account abstraction in Hecota, this is like all the more important. But even without native A, even in the context of just like 4327, it's really important to optimize for A, right? So the specifically, like with Glamster, that we all know that state creation is gonna get more expensive, right? So I think it's gonna get something like 5x more expensive to create new state. So this is like a really big, I guess, setback for AA, just because right, like because like every time you create like a new smart accounts, you're creating new state, right? So these days smart accounts are typically deployed with minimal proxies. And those proxies, they are pretty minimal, but there's always like a limit to how minimal they can be, right? So this new EIP, EIP 7819, is essentially like this very elegant idea that we can essentially make proxies a native concept on Ethereum by reusing the delegate concept introduced in EIP 7702. So if you guys recall, with 7702, you can send a new transaction type, that's essentially sets the codes of an account to this like delegate prefix plus the address of the implementation that it points to, right? So then like the entire code, of the account only takes 23 bytes. So 3 bytes for the prefix and 20 bytes for the address of the implementation. So this is like kind of like the minimal possible, I guess, proxy, right? But the reason why 7712 is not like enough by itself is because you can only create that delegate pointer through a new transaction type, right? Which means that like this mechanism is not composable on chain, right? So for example, if you want to have like a proxy factory that uses this pattern, that's not really possible. So 7819 is just like a very simple EIP that introduces a new opcode called set delegate that essentially allows a contract to create accounts with such delegate pointers. So the end result is that you can now create like much, much cheaper proxy accounts, which will make it much cheaper to use account abstraction. Yeah. Anything, Hadrian, you want to add?
No, I think it summarized it pretty well. Yeah, thank you for pushing this today.
No problem.
There's a question in chat. What's the difference between this and delegate call?
So if I can answer here, like right now, most of the proxy and clones that Derek mentioned use a delegate call mechanism. But in order to use the delegate call mechanism, you have to deploy some piece of code, either the clone or the proxy. And that means you have to copy all the code data to memory, and then you have to delegate. And this has a significant cost. Also, you have to S-load possibly the address of the destination that you want to target. So the idea is that EIP 7702 implements this natively in the protocol. And so what this proposal does is propose a mechanism to use this native construction instead of doing it in the user space through a delegate call. But it behaves, you can have the same behavior today through a delegate call. It's just significantly more expensive because there are possibly S-load involved and there is a way bigger bytecode that has to be deployed, and that is replicated possibly millions of times on the chain.
Sounds good. Any other questions? I saw Derek already answered one in chat as well. Anything else? Okay, then thank you, Derek and Hadrian. Next up, we have an EIP proposed by Alex, 7906. Are you on the call?
Yeah, hi. Can I share my screen? Can you hear me well?
We can hear you, and I think you should be able to share your screen. Give me a sec. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. So I'm proposing EAP 7906 for inclusion. These are transaction assertions, and this EAP will allow us to enforce transaction outcomes natively and verify state changes on chain. So the definition of the problem that the EAP is trying to solve is that transaction outcomes are currently unpredictable, specifically for the users, because users don't exactly control outcomes of their transactions. They do control the inputs, but the inputs only form a part of what determines the outcome of the transaction. They will call the bytecode, and the bytecode will read some state, and all of this together will produce the outcome that users are actually care about. And I think with EAP 8141 included, we got a very simple solution for that, and we can just expose the state change that happened directly. So this like gap in transaction visibility of the outcomes is real, and it's causing like a lot of losses through hacks and the user mistakes. And there are entire groups of attacks that are happening frequently on Ethereum and causing like huge losses. The major families of attacks that we're trying to address are like account control takeover, where like people just end up transferring their entire smart account to a malicious party. All the drainers and fake dexes or like swaps, like fake airdrops and things like that. People also like use funds to like aggressive MEV sometimes because the transactions they approved allows like very lenient slippages or like price impact. And also front running where like the expected contract behavior can change before the user transaction settles. And this can like even target the wallets that exist today, and they try to simulate what the outcomes of the transaction will be. And there are like major incidents, like the most famous probably is Bybit, with like $1.5 billion where like the safe was transferred due to like people not being able to understand what will happen with the transaction. But there are many more, and they're often like supply chain attacks where like the legitimate sites or like underlying infrastructure is compromised. And like the mitigations that exist today are like there are two major groups, I would say. Like one is this mentioned like outcome simulation, where the wallet does some like API request to its own backend or like some third-party backend and tries to like simulate a transaction and estimate what will happen when this transaction lands on chain. But like this simulation clearly runs against some current state. Probably it cannot. It's impossible to simulate every possible state that can exist. And if the transaction in the simulation is unreliable on itself, it can be its own threat vector, because like users trust the simulations, but this is not what is necessarily happening. And there are like problems with it because like this is some backend service that has to provide this, so it may not support some chains, some dApps, or like refuse service to users. So it's not standardized. It's like proprietary ad hoc solution, and it kind of needs you to just give this transaction to this like third party for the simulation, and you get the best effort simulation. The second approach is like on-chain like guard modules for smart accounts that try to run this like check after execution type of assertion on-chain, and multiple like smart account modules do that. And the problems here is that without like native EVM support, like these modules are limited in what they can do because they cannot express what we call negative conditions, which means like nothing happened except for the thing that like we want to happen. Like, you cannot express this on the current EVM. You cannot observe state changes if they are not shown by the contract as a public view function. So, for example, proxies are not visible. Like proxy implementation addresses are usually not visible. And like even if it was visible, you cannot trust it, because if the proxy was taken over, then it will lie to you in its like get implementation function. And like even if you say that I just want to check that my assets are not moved, some asset types like NFT tokens, it would be not feasible to iterate over all possible assets that you have. So the guard modules are like good, but it is not the full safety for users. So I believe the real mitigation here is to give users like full control over the possible outcomes of their transactions. Because if you look into it, the like financially important outcomes of EVM transactions are usually quite simple. These are like native balance changes. Like most of the time, it's ERC20 balance changes, and like almost every other situation is like one or a couple of storage slots written in specific contracts. So we can give users the outcome control with two steps. The first part is to expose these storage diffs and balance changes into the EVM. And the second is to create the tooling for the wallets and like off-chain programs that can interpret what these storage changes even mean. So the EAP 7906 that I'm proposing for inclusion, it is the way to expose these balances storage changes. So it consists of three opcodes: TX trace, TX diff, and to work with events, it has event data copy. And together they expose absolutely every state change that can happen on Ethereum in the EVM. and we use like EAP 8141 to gate access to this opcode to a specific frame. We introduce a new frame mode, which is like called post-transaction. And this frame has to run after the transaction finalizes. It cannot be included anywhere in between. And these opcodes don't work outside of this frame. So like it does not allow in transaction introspection. You cannot like suddenly make decisions based on other storage rights. And the only thing that can do it can decide to revert the entire execution body of the transaction. So every state change that happened in the transaction reverse means that smart account like has to decide and accept the finalization of the observed state change. So this is what the sequence diagram for this would look like. The first 4 steps are equivalent to how frame transaction would look like right now. There are some changes at validations. And the last frame can make a call to the enforcer of transaction assertions. And this is an all-seeing frame that can observe directly into the state changes that happen throughout the transaction and make this decision to revert or not. So looking into the opcode, there are 3 because they provide the different splice of information. So TX trace exposes the state change as an iterator, and it very much follows the shape of a TX param. And crucially, if something is not present in a TX trace result, it means that this change did not happen in the current transaction. This is what allows us to express negative conditions like nothing changed or like nothing else changed. TXD gives you direct access to specific variables and storage slots of every contract on chain, and it can look into things that did not change and act as a alias for a slot, basically. And it is necessary because if you only had an iterator, it would be kind of complex to reach the specific slots. And event data copy exposes like the data from events for protocols that may like be event-driven, like meta transaction relays, bundlers, and like cross-chain bridges, things like that. So the perfect user experience that we can achieve from accepting EAP 79 or 6 and the surrounding tooling is to make the transaction simulations feel like and actually be enforced. So the user confirmation includes all the financially important state changes that can happen in the transaction. And users can control them per transaction, and users also can install like persistent post-transaction policies in their smart account wallets. And basically any violation of this policy is a guaranteed on-chain revert. So the tooling that is required to do that, most of it already exists today. It is just not joined into a single protocol. So there is a clear sign-in workgroup, and it is a group that's working on creating a registry of all verifying known contracts and their like metadata descriptions, specifically for clear sign-in in ERC 7730. And like Sourcify is, of course, working on verifying all contracts source codes, and Solidity already has a storage layout flag that allows you to export the storage layout definitions. And Guess has all the tracing support to collect the storage changes that happen in transaction. And now, like there are multiple like kind of debuggers. Like for example, Tenderly can perfectly show you what's variable changed based on the transaction trace. So like by connecting all these tools, we can get this like outcome clear sign-in protocol. So like to talk briefly about the impact, it kind of makes sense that the first adoption and the perfect customer for this are like sophisticated institutional vaults and like projects dealing with blockchain security, because like we are closing here the time of check, time of use gap for existing simulations and all the policies based on the simulation. We kind of collapse the pre-execution simulation and on-chain enforcement as a single stack. And yeah, of course, they can implement policies like ban any unexpected change unless they have signed off on the allowed change. So this can help them defend against attackers who know exactly what the stack they're using right now. And like existing solutions, like the safeguards, they get like superpowers from adopting transaction assertions natively. there are a couple of questions that are often asked. Like one is like if TX trace is too much introspection, like gas and origin, and I believe that it's not the case because we have frame transactions, and because we can limit use of this opcode to the final static frame mode, and guarantees that the only like decision you can make based on this new knowledge is if you revert or not, do not revert this transaction. And the important thing is with 8141 implemented, 1706 is very simple. Like the state diff that you need to expose, like all nodes already have to collect it. They just need to expose it with this frame. And like if there is it's possible that some contracts cannot be supported by this off-chain tooling if they do very custom things with their storage. But this should be very rare. And like I believe on day one, the vast majority of contracts that are actually financially meaningful can be supported. And like we can try to cover the long tail down the road. And I have a couple of links to share. Like this is already implemented by Ethrex. I would like to invite them to speak if they are present on the call about the implementation. They have a public devnet that is running this EAP. I have built a like quick playground demo of how it should look like to use Ethereum with AP 7906, and they've like wrote about the off-chain tooling and the clear signing aspect of it on Twitter on this link if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Where could people find the links from the last slide?
Let me just paste them to.
Sounds good.
To the
yeah,
chat, yeah.
Paste them to the chat.
Here.
Thank you. There was some discussion while you were talking. Anyone wants to briefly speak up, raise any questions, or I mean, otherwise we can also leave that in chat. Okay, but sounds like from chat there was quite a bit of interest in the EIP. What's the best place for continued discussion?
Like clear signing work group, like the Ethereum magicians, and like DM me. I'll try to go over the questions in the chat after the call.
Sounds good. Yeah. In the interest of time, I would maybe, I mean, you did mention Ethrex. If anyone from Ethrex wants to briefly speak up about this topic, now would be the time, but I would ask to keep that short.
Just a quick word. It was we think the IP is good for Ethereum for security. There are lots of cases that could have been prevented using this feature, and yeah, we didn't announce the devnet yet because we are including lots of EIPs on top of frames, but we will plan to do it soon.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other comments, questions now live? Otherwise, we can move on to the next EIP. Okay. Then next up is Jochem with EIP 7668.
Yeah, I can be very short. So EIP 7668 is about to remove bloom filters, and I think I just found an Anscar, so that's very funny. This EIP, we know the bloom filters, they were, so these are the lock bloom filters. They are not either not being used anymore or like not very useful anymore, so we should remove them. Well, what this removing means, that is something what we can talk about. What was very surprised about is that EIP 7906, which is the SSC block, SSC execution blocks, is well, this is exactly what Tony is asking right now. I was surprised that this is part of the SSC execution EIP also, but I still want to propose this EIP individually. because if Ethan's ERP does not make it, I think I support that ERP. But if it does not make it, then you can still deprecate / remove the log spoon. EIP 8304, which is the trustless log and transaction index. This actually, it says it will not remove the boom filters itself, but I think this specific EIP, which removes the boom filters, works perfectly together with that EIP. So this is why I'm proposing it. It's a very simple change. The bloom filters are not being used anymore, but clients still, all the clients are still re-executing this and therefore calculating it. That's a waste of energy, and clients can use that elsewhere. So let's remove it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah, and in case, of course, both EAPs move forward, we could figure out whether to use one combined EAP or just remove it from the scope of the other EAP.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. Any questions, comments otherwise? If not, then we can move on to Kev, who wanted to propose EAP 8200. Kev, are you on the call?
Yep. Sorry, also front run Ansgar. So I want to propose EIP 8200. I will first paste another link in where essentially we analyzed 99% of the blocks to see the precompile usage and figured out that around 50% of the precompiles are barely being used, with like some of them like Blake 2F being essentially used by one contract. And yeah, so the issue of this, the issue of this is that for zkVMs, each precompile implies an accelerator or a circuit, which essentially just means the zkVM needs to have special logic or dedicated circuits to make sure that these precompiles are fast. So it increases the attack surface or the surface that we need to audit for zkVMs. A lesser motivation, which pre-zkVMs, is that once you EVMify a precompile, you can essentially remove the native library that you have. And the way to do it is essentially we set the code of the precompile at the precompile address for some equivalent EVM bytecode. It's not super difficult, so that's about it.
Okay. There's a question in chat from Tony.
What is the difference to just repricing the precompiles when we roll out ZK EVMs? So if you reprice, so the difference here is that you'll be pricing it based on the opcode, basically how much it costs to run this library, so like the Blake 2F equivalent library. Whereas with zkVMs, you'd be repricing it based on prover costs if we introduce prover costs.
Yeah, I was more thinking of just repricing it based on how much it would cost with EVM code, and under the hood, clients could basically change nothing.
I think that does introduce some complexity, right? Because you'll be repricing it based off of a contract that's not in consensus. Like it's easy for precompiles that sort of have static costs. Like if Blake 2F was always just like 1,000 gas. But if the cost is sort of dynamic or based on branching, then I think it becomes a lot more difficult. Like you need a lookup table, essentially.
You mean in the zkVM?
I just mean to measure the gas cost of the EVM code. Like if you imagine we
Right.
introduced
And to me, what is not clear is like, what is the difference to just writing the precompiles in EVM code, then benchmarking them, and then repricing the precompiles based on that. And after doing so, they are expensive enough such that they are not an issue for zkVMs anymore. And at the same time, clients don't have to change anything today. Because I assume the precompile logic is exactly the same, no matter if you write it as clients do today in some optimized language versus in EVM.
Yeah, so I guess the difference is that, like, if we just take Blake 2F, the easy case is that we measure it outside of consensus. We just say, okay, the cost of it is 1,000 gas, and then you can just put that inside of the code. But usually what happens is that the cost of a precompile is based on the input, so it's not sort of a static function. So it's not easy to just reprice it once and then just put it inside of the code, right? Does that make sense, Tony? Like the gas accounting.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I see. I have to think about it more, but this makes sense. Yeah, thank
Joachim says we should also PFI the identity precompile for Hagata. Yeah, I agree. I think this EIP relied on it, if I remember correctly, or I might have removed it.
Yeah, it might rely on it, but then we should still PFI it, right? I mean, it is implicit, but then we should still PFI 7666 together with 8200.
Right. Okay, makes sense. I guess the one funny case here is the ModX precompile, which if you look at the link that I sent in, for inputs that are less than 256 bits, it's used quite heavily. But for more than 256 bits, it's like barely used. And the less than 256 bits usage is predominantly just for SNARK or ZK verifiers. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, any other questions, comments to Kev's EIP? If not, then
Maybe I could make another comment. Sorry. Yeah, maybe it's not super obvious, but this is like an implicit repricing. So the website that I linked also sort of shows what happens if you like 2x the cost of a particular precompile or 5x, like what breaks. The main concern being that there is a transaction gas limit, so you can't make it like too expensive, or else contracts actually do break pretty badly. And yeah, I've tested out a few contracts to see like how bad it will be. The BLS12, the set of precompiles for BLS12 are basically not used that much, but I wasn't able to get sort of optimized bytecode for it. So it wasn't included. Tony?
Yeah, what is the argument of already doing it now? Because if it's like impacting users, it might be worth to do it with a larger CKVM repricing later.
Yeah, so the idea is only to do it to the precompiles that are basically not used. So this shouldn't impact users, like it shouldn't break any of the users. Any of the ones that do break users, I basically just remove them from the initial EIP. So like that's why a BLS12 was removed. For that 19, right?
okay. I mean, anything else to add there, Kev, or?
I think that's it. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I just have one question regarding this. So for the pre-compels, the reason why we want to EVMify is that it is going to be easier in the CK EVM to, well, it will use less code because you do not have to need to have this these dedicated secrets. I do not know what that means, but I can understand it from an engineering perspective. It's like a very nice property. So my question is like, for instance, we can see on your site that the BLS pre-compels are not being used as much. If we then want to reduce our work or that we want to signal to the community like do not use these pre-compels anymore, then we might also want to consider to either remove these pre-compels or because they are actually being used, to reprice them to signal that we intend to remove these. And if you want to do that, then we should draft an ERP for this, and we should propose this for a code.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. It did sound a bit contentious, even if you look at the usages. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we could do that. It just sounds a bit more contentious, especially since we just added them, like, was it 1 fork ago, or maybe it was 2. But yeah, you can check the usage. Any usage, as far as I could see, was like maybe a bit spam or someone testing out the precompiles, so it's not being used.
Okay, yeah. I mean, now that this ERP is PFI'd, we could still consider just expanding the scope if there is appetite for that. Okay, then I think that wraps up, Kev, your EIP. And with that, I think those were all the PFI EIPs for today. Is there anything else headquarter specific for today to discuss? Okay, then for the last section, some housekeeping. We already went over the Hive PR by Chase. So then last thing is some housekeeping items by Pooja. I don't think it makes sense to go over all of them synchronously now on the call, but Pooja, is there anything specific from the list that you posted that maybe specifically requires attention?
Yes, I just wanted to share that from the last meeting, it was decided that all Glamsterdam upgrade EIPs can be moved to SFI. So there is a PR open for this upgrade stage. And we are requesting authors approval there. It is pending for authors approval. In the last meeting, we also discussed about some of the core EIPs to move into the review status in order to keep it in sync. Once that is done, that is actually approved by most of the authors, just waiting on EIP 8038 to be promoted to review. Once that is done, the next step would be to move all other EIPs which are not core but networking and informational and yet listed in the Meta EIP to be moved to the review status. I have added 5 new PRs in order to ensure that all other EIPs are also listed in the right status. We have received for one EIP 8070, but for the rest 4, PR is still open. I would request authors to maybe take a look at it and kindly approve so we can move all these proposals to the review status. And the final thing here would be once all of the Glamsterdam listed EIPs are in review status, then there would be another PR coming up for the next ACDE meeting where EIP 7773, which is the Meta EIP for Glamsterdam, will be moved to review. But we can do it only if all other EIPs are moved into review status. So kindly take out time, take a look at the PRs and grant your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. And with that, we've reached the end of the agenda. Is there anything else to discuss today?
Maybe to mention that we have one more week left from the proposal deadline.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, one more reminder, 1 week left for proposals. So anyone who feels particularly inspired about changing Ethereum, you have 1 week left. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for a while again. Okay, and with that, thank you, everyone. You can take the last 15 minutes to celebrate the birthday, but not on the call. Go celebrate somewhere else. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Happy birthday.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy birthday, Ansgar. Bye bye.